Salute. It's the Kevin Speaks Vegeta's Pain. Now I'm here once again to talk to you guys about some things that I've been seeing that I think needs to be addressed. So without further ado, right now, for those of you who follow my content, you may know that one of the hats that I wear is that I'm an influencer, right? And being an influencer, at this juncture, I've covered classes K through 12. So I have a large sample size from which to take my empirical data. And it's my firm belief as a man of color, right, who's concerned about the development of younger men and women of color, right? One of the main things that I've noticed and have been trying to address is the behavior of our young people in these school environments, right? So it may not be popular to say, right, but one of the things that we've been doing as of late is we've been asking educators, teachers, administrations, right, and overarching systems, what are they going to do to curtail the gross numbers that we're seeing in education, right, in terms of all of the metrics of performance, right, is really atrocious. And then when we ask ourselves, well, how do we sort of curtail and curb a lot of what's going on? A lot of the times we find ourselves questioning the educators, questioning the administration, and questioning the overarching systems, right, the departments of, right, the people who we imagine are in charge of this type of ordeal. But what I want to do is I want to challenge our community for a couple of reasons, right? One is that we understand that leaving any solution to an overarching system is problematic, right? It hasn't worked for people of color, right? Specifically black people, since the moment we were forcibly brought to this country. And I don't believe it should be at the foundation of any of our plans moving forward. So that means, right, if we can't leave it to others, it means we have to take the initiative ourselves. Well, what does that look like? Well, that's why I'm here, right? I'm here to start talking to parents, right? Uncles, aunts, older brothers, older sisters, cousins, right? Loved ones. If you have relatives who are younger, who are in public school education, it is imperative that you tap into what's going on, to what they're learning, how they're retaining the information, if they're retaining the information. But most importantly, we need to understand that some of the numbers, right, for instance, there are some districts definitely in the country, but I believe as well in New York, if I'm not mistaken, that the entire school is outfitted by substitutes. What does that mean? It means that we're leaning heavily on people who don't have as much training as certified teachers, right? And whilst you can be a very effective substitute teacher, because I've seen some, I know many, at the same time and at the same juncture, right, this is problematic and reflective of the lack of interest in the profession, respect in the profession, right, payout from the profession. So one thing that I wanted to address, right, I really want to address the behavior of our young people, because to say we have to leave it, right, to sort of this ambiguous they and or the departments of and or these individual administrations is problematic. They need our assistance. They need the assistance of people from our communities, the people who look like us. Because as someone who is on the inside, I'm telling you, it's maddening what you see at times. And oftentimes, right, different schools have different issues. But what I've realized is that in places where instruction is allowed to happen, in places where the students are doing better, there's a direct correlation to the behavior of the young people. Why? Because that impacts the instructor's ability to provide instruction, right? It impacts their ability to transition to their next class in a timely fashion. It impacts how much time they actually have rooted in instruction as opposed to not. It impacts every layer and level of the educational process and or experience. When our young people aren't conducting themselves properly and are making it very, very difficult for educators to provide instruction to them, they do not only the administration, not only the school, but they do themselves first and foremost a gross injustice. They do themselves a great disservice. And at some point, because in our community, let's wake it up, we have a tendency to show up to schools and want to berate the educators. And here's what's true. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't show up any and every time for your young person. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't show up, right, and add a layer of defense and, dare I say, offense in the event that your young person is being mis or ill-treated. But one thing that we do far too often in the Black community is that we're known for showing up to schools and acting ignorantly on behalf of our young people. We're known for not knowing the full story and blindly believing our young people, which is why we've transitioned a system from holding the accountability and the onus of education on the parents and the young people to now removing all accountability and responsibility. But then we say we need men in education. We say we need men in education when men are concerned with discipline, accountability, and understanding. And in education, those are severely lacking. Severely lacking. Right? So is the onus or the blame to put on one person? Absolutely not. There's too many schools and there are too many issues to place the onus on one group of people, one person, or one set of group of people. But what we can do is, as we endeavor to address these situations and as we endeavor to turn these things around, we can start to ask our young people, not only because our salvation will only come from us, but because at some juncture we have to acknowledge that one of the biggest challenges in education right now is the inability to provide instruction because of the conduct of our young people. And it's nothing to get offended about, right? If you can imagine that a 2-year or 15-month or 18-month pandemic can stagnate our young people both emotionally and psychologically, then you can also acknowledge that part of the byproducts and the detriments of that time period and lack of socialization and sort of derailing their maturation process, a lot of that has impacted the ability for instruction to go on. And nobody would say that our education department was anything to write home about prior to the pandemic. So imagine, right, all of the negative impacts of emotional and psychological stagnation and how that would manifest itself in and throughout. So I make another appeal. Adults, parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents, if you have young people that you care about in the educational process, please become more proactive in their academic journey. Please make your voice more heard in terms of what you'd like to see being taught. Like, why are young Black people not learning about STEM, learning how to play chess? Why isn't there a debate team in more inner city schools? Right? We have to keep dominating the things we dominate. Absolutely. But we have to start extending our reach and our tentacles into non-traditional sports. It only serves to benefit us, right? So we need to start looking at and asking the necessary and relevant questions. And we also have to come together to work together and demand more from our young people, especially in terms of behavior, because it's atrocious, right? And take it from somebody who sees it. So I want to thank you for the time it took to deliver this message. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about my thoughts. If you share the same opinion, let me know. If you differ, please, right, disagree respectfully. and let's start up the universal conversation. And let's try to figure out how we can effect and impact change. Right? Salute.